ní ẹsẹsẹ lọ fojú jọdẹ ọ̀pá lọ́dẹ jọ látàná ó sì ti wẹ́rẹ́kẹ́ ó ti fọ́fún ládìẹ yọjú.
Asasio ẹ̀fọ́ àti wáìdì mo ti pè yín lónìí o kẹ́ wá jẹ́ mi ní o.
Okay. Let's do a proper analysis and review of King of Thieves. Guys, first things first, this is how movies should be created. Guys, this is a literally masterpiece. This is a masterpiece. This is how a work of art should be presented, with perfection, with excellence. Guys, I went to the cinemas, I watched this movie, yes, and then I went back the next day and I watched it again. That's to tell you that I was not ready to stop feeling the way I was feeling as at the time I was watching King of Thieves. Guys, this movie, it got me into different dimensions of my mind. I could not stop thinking and ruminating? Yes, ruminating over this movie over and over and over again. It was just so amazing. I was awestruck, if that's the right word to use, but I was awestruck by the genius ideas, the implementation, the execution, the creation of this particular movie. And I said to myself that it's high time. Yes, I mean, the long wait is finally over for us to see excellence from Nollywood. Guys, this movie stood tall above every single Nigerian movie that I have watched in a long time. Yes, one Nigerian movie that I had always doffed my hat for was Sylvia. But then I watched this one and I'm just like, okay, you know what, Sylvia, you need to take a step back, because this one totally beats you at this game. Guys, listen, I have a whole lot to say. I'm going to be doing a proper analysis of this movie, King of Thieves. Yes, so watch to the end of this video, all right? And go ahead, let me know your thoughts about the movie as well in the comment section below. If you have watched it, if you have not watched the movie yet, it is currently showing in cinemas nationwide. I'm sorry if you are based abroad, you just might not be able to watch the movie. Yes, so if you're based in Nigeria, the movie is showing across cinemas, God, I've used the word across 1 million times, but the movie is showing in cinemas currently, so you can go ahead and see it. But one thing I am praying for is that this movie finds its way to Netflix, because it is really deserving of being number one on Netflix. Yes, the world needs to see it. The international community, they need to be blessed by this masterpiece called King of Thieves, all right? But before I go into the analysis of this movie fully, let me first of all introduce myself to all of you and welcome all of you back to my YouTube channel. You're welcome back. My name is Glory Elijah. This is Frankly Speaking with Glory. I am the girl with the T. Yes, let's just get into it. So beginning with the plot of the movie started in a modern day Nigerian art gallery. So there were people just viewing, admiring paintings, artworks hanging on the wall as usual. And then a certain foreign woman took interest in a particular painting, a painting of a warrior sitting gallantly, okay, not particularly sitting, but posing gallantly on a horse. It was more like a horse revving and screaming. So the gallery attendant had walked up to the woman and volunteered to tell her the story of the character in the painting, that is Ageshinkole, the King of Thieves, right? And she had agreed. Now, this gallery attendant, who turns out to be one of Nigeria's, or rather Nollywood's veteran actors, Segun Arinze, turned out to be the omniscient narrator of the story in the movie, aka the voice of God. Yes, now in literature, that is what they call the narrator of the story. That is also a literary technique, or rather a narrative technique in literature, right? Where one person who is like the all-seer, the all-knower of the story, and the reasons behind every idea and every actions of a story, right, takes the position of God and tells the story like they were there when it actually happened. So that was the role of the narrator of the movie. So we were taken back into time to the ancient kingdom of Ajeremi, which was actually a prosperous town. However, inasmuch as the kingdom of Ajeremi was very prosperous and had plenty, at the beginning of the narration, we saw the very ridiculously grotesque execution of 4 young men who had actually stolen what? Ogede. That is plantain. Guys, the villagers, the chiefs, they were so vengeful, against that crime that those 4 young men had actually committed. And it was actually a tradition that anybody that was caught stealing would be buried alive with their head sticking out of that grave, yes. And then there's a snake master that would conjure the snake to come out and bite the head of the culprit. And that was exactly what happened. And so it was established that stealing was a crime punishable by death. Yes, by death, by execution in the kingdom of Ajeremi. So fast forward to generations later, it was the season of the crowning of a new king. Yes, it was the king's coronation. And so that was where we saw the rich display of the Yoruba culture and traditions, where whoever that was to be crowned king was to pay homage, respect to all the different groups and factions in the society. So we saw how the king paid homage to the women's witches' coven, to the men's witches' coven, to the spirits, to the deities, to Shango, the god of thunder. We saw how the king did as tradition demanded, and so the celebration started. There was fun things happening, and there was a lot of singing, there was a lot of dancing. Guys, I was really amazed at that person that was burnt, the king's masquerade that was burnt alive. He came out. It was a very powerful moment, in the movie at that point in time. And so, whilst the whole celebration was going on, 2 kings from their own kingdoms were coming with gifts to come and present to the new king, as was the traditions of the time. But then those kings were actually attacked by Ageshinkole and his band of thieves on the road. And so, moving forward from there, the kingdom of Ajeremi was constantly plagued by the terror called Ageshinkole and his band of thieves. And no matter what they did or who they sent to, fight back, nothing seemed to work. Yes, because nobody could match up to the power of Ageshinkole and his band of thieves. And so guys, it happened that there was a particular hunter, Oguntade, yes, who was basically the good guy in the movie. Yes, so he had first of all been consulted by the chiefs to go ahead and defend the kingdom of Ajeremi. But then as the leader of the hunters, together with the rest of the hunters, they had stood their grounds that the only thing they were trained for, yes, to do in life was to kill animals and not human beings. But then it felt as though a conspiracy happened somehow, somewhere, between a certain unknown Ifa priest that had happened to come to tell the king that there was a solution according to Ifa himself, and so there was a conspiracy between that Ifa and Oguntade's father, by virtue of when they threw kola nuts to consult Ifa. And so the father came and told Oguntade that, his jealous wife was going to die if Oguntade did not make a sacrifice of presenting a deer to Ifa. And so of course in that village there was no deer in sight. But then I felt like something was planted, a deer was planted. Oguntade went and stole it and then was caught in the process. And so because of the grief that the king was going through at that point in time, decided to leave the judgment of Oguntade's crime in the hands of the chiefs. And the chiefs, of course, they already had beef with Oguntade that, so only you had mouth to tell us that we should go and fight Ageshinkole and his band of thieves by ourselves, right? So they gave him 2 choices. It's either he died by the style of the execution of the community, or he went and stood against Ageshinkole, and his gang, yes, in a combat. But then Oguntade knew that he was no match at all for the king of thieves and his gang. So he ran to his aging mother to tell her that, look, this is what's going to happen. At the end of the day, whichever choice I choose, I will end up dying. And that was where we discovered that Oguntade's mother is a very, very powerful witch and the leader of a women's sorceress cult. I don't know if I put that the right way, but the mother is very, very powerful, as she carried out some ritual rites by burying him in a shallow grave for 7 whole days. And by the time he was awoken on the 7th day, he was fully fortified and ready to go into a face-off with the king of thieves. And it had happened that even though Oguntade the hunter had been powerful enough to defeat the members of the gang of Ageshinkole, yes, he alone still could not defeat the King of Thieves himself. And so the revelation of the movie started to unfold. So we discovered that the King of Thieves himself was actually not the villain of the movie as we had thought from the beginning of the entire narration. Apparently, the chiefs, yes, in the movie were actually the villain, according to the revelation of what's his name now, the King of Thieves story. So it had turned out that he was a prince back in his time who was supposed to ascend the throne of his father and become the king of the village, but because of greed and the selfish interest of the should I say corrupt chiefs of the palace, they convinced him via the aid of a corrupt Ifa priest that the only way he would be able to have a smooth ascension onto the throne of his father was for him to publicly steal a goat. Out of naivety, yes, out of naivety and ignorance, he had gone ahead to do as he was advised, and then he was caught red-handed by, of course, the same servants of the chiefs who had actually advised him to do likewise, yes, and they had caught him and also executed him and also executed his best friend. So 3 generations later, he had reincarnated into not a mere mortal, but a powerful deity to mete out revenge on the kingdom of Jeremy. And according to him, he had patiently waited for the time where the king that had actually caused his death at that point in time, for his son to become king, to terrorize his society, or rather his community. And that was exactly the reason why he had been killing and stealing and doing all the havoc that he had actually been meting out on the community of Jeremy. Now, that was just a summary of the plot of the movie. A lot of interesting things actually happened. You would totally need to watch the movie to grasp the full picture of all what I'm trying to explain here, all right? So moving on, I will go ahead and list and explain some of the elements that actually added and contributed to the awesomeness of the movie that made me enjoy it thoroughly. Now, beginning with the narrative technique, I have already explained that. I explained that the makers of the movie, they employed the omniscient narrative point of view, or the omniscient narrative technique to the movie. You can also call it the voice of God. You can also call it should I say the all-seeing narrative technique. In literature, that is what it's called. What that means is that there is a narrator that tells you the story, the idea, the events, the activities, and even as far as the things that's in the mind of the characters of a particular story. The narrator tells it as if he or she lives in the minds, in the heads, and even in that prevailing setting of the story, right? And that was exactly what Segun Arinze, the narrator, did. And guys, I think it thoroughly added to me understanding the movie, especially because the movie was actually acted using the Yoruba language as the language of communication in the dialogue. So if not, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy. But the good thing is the narrator actually narrated the story, or told the story, using the English language. So anybody that watches the movie will be able to understand. And there were also subtitles, although the subtitles were not really great, because sometimes a lot of things were said at the same time, especially the chants, the incantations, the conjuring, yes. And if you're not really a Yoruba person, you totally might not be able to understand. At those points in time, you might get really lost as to what exactly the cast were actually saying. But overall, the narrative technique, guys, in my opinion, it added to the richness of the story, to the movie, to the Yoruba culture being on full display. Then moving on to the cast, I must confess, this is one movie where I saw the utilization of A-list Yoruba movie actors on full display. Guys, each and every member of the cast that made up the storyline of this movie, they came prepared. They held their own, they delivered their lines excellently. Every single thing that was required of them to add to the richness of the movie, of the story, guys, they did it excellently. I have no complaints whatsoever. Guys, I saw every member of the cast delivering. Guys, they were giving the proper the accurate interpretation of their characters, of their roles, guys. Even if I did not really understand 100% of the Yoruba language that they were speaking, guys, I could understand from their body language, from their actions. And guys, that is really key. And that's one of the problems that I have with most Nigerian movies. You see that the body language and the actions of some of the cast in most movies does not really align with what is expected of their character roles, guys. But in this movie, King of Thieves, it was 100%. I have no complaints whatsoever. And they were also energetic. Oh my God. They were also energetic. I love, oh my God, every single one of them. I have no complaints whatsoever. Yes, I love even a particular cast that you would think that, okay, this person has a small role. No way. Even the interpretation of their emotions, guys, and the display of their emotions. I mean, their acting was so good and in sync with one another's role. Everything had continuity, guys, to the point that it was almost impossible to tell apart the major and minor characters, guys. It was that impossible. And yes, it was impossible because it was perfection. Yes, I mean, guys, even the way they were able to express their emotions. Look at when one of the chiefs, the one that was in charge of executing those young boys at the start of the story. Yes, look at when the gang of thieves came and killed all his children. I think he had 3 children, and when the thieves attacked, they killed all 3 of his children. Look at the way he expressed the emotion of is it trauma? Yes, of trauma, of heartbreak. The way he felt lost. Look at the way he expressed that emotion, guys. He could not cry. He could not lament. He could not scream. He could not say anything. He was speechless. He was going through a truckload, a tornado of emotions. But in as much as he could not even utter a word, his facial expression, his body language completely embodied all of that truckload of emotions that he was going through at that point in time. Look at where the queen, yes, the king's wife, lost her only child that they had been hiding in secret for a long time. Look at when she lost her child. Look at her lamentation, the way she was crying, the way she was lamenting. Guys, look at the king. His facial expression, his body language, his countenance completely interpreted the heartbreak, the pain he was feeling at that point in time, that his only child, whom he had been hiding away from society, away from the thieves, had just been killed. Guys, that is what you call A-list acting. Yes, in my opinion. Onto the transitions of the movie. Yes, I'm going to talk about the transitions in line with the sound effects and the background music as used in the movie. Now, this is the part where I get to give massive accolades to whoever edited this movie. Guys, see, that person goes school. That person gets sense. That person sabi calculation. That person, he gets style, he gets swag. Ha! Whoever edited King of Thieves, the movie, deserves an award. That person deserves massive recognition and appreciation for a job well done. Guys, did you notice how the transitions in the movie was very much in sync with the actions, with the dialogue, with the sound effects, with the background music in the movie? Everything was so in sync, guys. There's this saying in Nigeria that there are some people that don't know how to cook, and so when they cook soup, you will see the oil swimming on top of the water of the soup. The water will be swimming below, then the ingredients of the soup will be swimming below as well, and then the maggi and the salt, that the spices of the soup, is going to be at the bottom of the pot. But in this regard, it wasn't the case. This editor sabi cook soup. This editor was the one that partially, in fact, not even partially, I mean, it's like all the characters, all the elements of the movie come together, putting together. This editor was the one that actually stirred the pot of soup and made it sweeter. I mean, there were so many scenes in the movie that actually gave me goosebumps. It was almost as if the movie from beginning to end gave me goosebumps, but there were very notable scenes that I will never forget in a hurry. How many of you remember the part where the queen was crying and lamenting in grief, at the death of her child, and the moment she exclaimed his name, what is that his name again? Adefimihan. She was like, Adefimihan. That was how the background music also came into play. And so the singer of the background music and the queen, they were lamenting the exact same way. That was perfection. One, guys, that was another thing that made me go back to the cinema to rewatch the movie. It was as though the queen and whoever sang the background music, I think his name is Songbird. Yes, that guy is a genius. It was as though both of them, they had rehearsed that part over and over and over again. Or maybe the editor played it at the same time that the queen was lamenting and say, yeah, finish me with expertise. That was just one of it. Another scene that really struck me was when the king and the king of thieves himself, they were challenging each other on the hill. You know, when they hugged and they were fighting, they were struggling for who was more powerful. And then it was as though there was going to be a final blow and the king woke up from his dream. Guys, that part was powerful. Another scene again that at that point in time, I almost went mad. I'm like, nah, this is perfection. It was where this background music was going on, and then a particular scene was about to transition into the scene where the guy that was the masquerade that went to challenge the king of thieves himself was playing Ayo with Mr. Macaroni and Brother Shaggy, and then Mr. Macaroni was about to slam his seeds of Ayo game into the game pot, and at the moment it was just coming like bah. That was how the background music too also slammed bah. I say, hey! Now, wow! These people, when I want to use expertise, they finish my small brain! Scatter my brain, man! When I discovered that the background music and the sound effects were specifically created for King of Thieves, that was when I knew that the budget of the movie, no be beans, no be Gary. I mean, it's one thing to have a budget, and it's one thing to also effectively utilize that budget to give the movie the exact things that it needed to be great. And that was what the makers of this movie did. The background music, nah, it was perfection. It was great. Talking about the effects of the movie, some people said it's called CGI, that is computer generated images, but whilst I was growing up, a fun name that we gave things like that was called film tricks. Yes, you see all those actions of people appearing and disappearing, people flying, you know, people falling down, hitting their heads on the floor and then standing up, still standing, you know, things like that. We used to call it film tricks, but all of those things as shown in the movie King of Thieves, guys. Hey! I don't know if I should say that for the first time watching a proper Nigerian movie, they actually executed those film tricks perfectly. I mean, I've seen a lot of film tricks in Nigerian movies. I mean, I'm like, hey, there was one I saw. The guy was wearing blue, walking into a scene. But when he entered the scene, he was wearing white. I'm like, hey! What kind of editing mistake is this one? What kind of rubbish is this? I mean, guys, I've seen a lot of film tricks over time, and most of them are so annoying that you just declare there and then that, you know what, I'm done with Nigerian movies. And see, Nigerian movies are not only guilty with such nonsensical film tricks. I mean, come on, my Indian movie lovers, we've seen a lot of Indian movies where they do the unbelievable. They do the most mind-blowing things that are very, very unrealistic, you know. So Nigerian movies are not the only ones that are guilty of such, but I have seen a whole lot, especially when they want to show blood scenes. You will see blood that looks like Zobo, and you're wondering like, is this how my blood is? Like, guys, it's mostly very hilarious, but with King of Thieves, guys, the film tricks, yes, the effects were so believable. They were so realistic. There was no inclination that this is actually fake. You're looking at it happening right before your eyes, and all you can just do at that point in time is just applaud them. It's just applaud. It's just appreciate an excellent job done. Let's talk about the cinematography of the movie, aka the camera angles, the general disposition of the camera work of the movie. Guys, in my opinion, it was all excellent. Guys, there were some camera angles that I was seeing in the movie, and I was just thinking, my God, this is insane. Who thought about this? How did they achieve this? You know, I was watching this movie and I was just wishing that I was a professional filmmaker. Yes, I mean, what I do on YouTube is just the basic of the basics of filmmaking. Guys, these people, they went beyond, over and above, you know, to achieve the excellent movie that I'm talking about. Yes, I mean the camera angles, they are so superbly done. I'm sure that they kind of used drones, yes, drones to get all of those angles, especially those scenes where you are watching the Ageshinkole gang, you know, riding on their horses, you know, those scenes that you have to see from above, guys. Perfection. And then the picture, the color is so perfect, and it completely depicts the setting of the movie, the setting of the time. You know, every scene had their own color, and it added to the flavor and the beauty of the Yoruba kingdom, of the Yoruba picture, the Yoruba culture and traditions. And guys, I don't know if you also noticed that the color of the movie kind of switched, you know, from the art gallery setting to the ancient epic Yoruba historical fictional setting. Guys, for me, it was perfection. Moving on to the costumes and the props of the movie, guys. Oh my days. You see, when I was watching King of Thieves, it completely reminded me of all those Chinese epic movies that I love to watch. Chinese epic movies and Korean epic movies, guys. I am a huge fan of such movies because I love the way the makers of those movies, they create their props and their costumes from scratch to finish. Yes, I'll give you a particular movie. Check out Rise of the Phoenixes on Netflix. Then go on to YouTube and search for videos that has to do with the making of the movie. You will see how these people create their props down to hairpins from scratch to finish. That is why I really love epic movies. And so when I was watching King of Thieves, guys, I was really amazed at how these people were able to create their own props from scratch to finish, and it all looked so real. It blended well and added to the perfection of the movie. I mean, we can rightly say that the costumes and the props also added to the beauty, you know, to putting on full display, to selling out the richness of the Yoruba cultures and traditions. Talking about the location and the setting, perfect, guys. I loved the greenery that was going on. I loved the hills, the mountains, the river. You see that part where Oguntade came out of the water, blazing fire and guns, you know, like a warrior, all fully fortified and ready for battle, you know, with the King of Thieves himself. That was spot on. And now finally, moving on to some literary techniques that were utilized in the movie to give it that creative touch, guys. The first one that I noticed was the technique of irony. Yes, I mean, see, this actually provided the hilarious part of the movie, the comedic part of the movie. I hope I'm actually getting these terms correct. Yes. Now, it was quite ironical that for every time that the community sent out people to fight against the thieves, right? It always happens that us, the viewers, we are so fully hyped and pumped, you know, with hopes, you know, we're literally all hyped up, thinking that these people that the Ajeremi community is sending is going to put an end to the Ageshinkole, the gang of thieves. But at the end of the day, they end up getting defeated, even when all the deities, the coven of witches, men's witches, women's witches, the spirits, they all came together, joined forces with the queen as the leader of all the witches. You know, we thought that, oh, finally, the King of Thieves and his gang, they were going to be defeated today. But guess what? Nothing of such happened. And even when this other guy, what's his name, Abegunde, yes, the bragging masquerade, went ahead, you know, with all his spiritual powers and everything, thought that he was going to defeat the King of Thieves and his gang, nothing happened. Ironically, he came back. Okay, he didn't even come back. He was swallowed up. He was swallowed up, and so his new home became the belly of the King of Thieves himself. So the irony in the movie, it added to the suspense, it added to I don't know, just basically the suspense. You know, you think you know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you do not really know what's going to happen. Yes, and so this leads me to the plot twist that happened in the movie. Yes, the plot twist, what did I call it? We can also see it as a situation of the movie having what's it called now, a deusex machina. I don't know if I'm getting that pronunciation correct. So in literature, it's when there's a problem, right, in the story, and it seems as though there is never going to be a solution to ending that problem. And then it turns out that a spiritual entity, an unknown or unexpected entity, comes along and solves that problem. Now, in The King of Thieves, it turns out that whilst us, the viewers, are thinking that the Ageshinkole himself, that's the head of the thieves, the King of Thieves himself, is actually the villain of the movie, it turns out that he's actually not the villain. He is the wronged hero, the hero that was unjustly wronged, and then he had come back to seek revenge on the people that actually unjustly and cruelly ended his life 3 generations ago. And so he was the one that started the problem, and so by himself, as a spiritual entity that he is, as a deity, the undying and unending deity, he came along and preferred a solution to the problem. By how? You know, by stopping the killings himself, and also by giving a very, very strong warning to the king and his chiefs that moving forward, yes, anybody that steals food should not be killed but to be pardoned, because such a person obviously stole food out of hunger. And also he warned that anybody that steals out of greed should be pardoned. Yes, and advised on how to do better, which brings us to the moral of the story, guys. We see the theme of, you know, morality, you know, and curbing moral decadence from the society. And I loved what the King of Thieves himself said, you know, that instead of channeling their energy into handling petty issues and giving very, very severe and drastic executions to people who steal petty things, they should also think about their forefathers that meted out a lot of cruelty and injustices in the land and corrupted the land and even sold their freedom and their wealth to strangers. I know we're talking about the slave trade era, when kings and royal rulers at that time sold out their people, sold out all their treasures, you know, all for petty things like trinkets and mirrors. Overall, guys, I loved the plot twist of the movie. I loved everything that I have mentioned and analyzed on this video. I completely loved all of them. But the only downside, I think I mentioned that earlier, is the subtitles, guys. There are times when I felt lost, that, oh my god, what are they talking about? But then, well, it wasn't really a big deal for me because I am used to watching Yoruba movies, and so whether I understand what you're saying or not, I read the subtitles regardless and I enjoy it. But if that had been tweaked to perfection, the movie would have been 101% for me. So overall, I am rating the movie 100%. Yes. Anyways, guys, this is where I'm going to end this particular episode of Frankly Speaking with Gloria Elijah. Let me know your thoughts about The King of Thieves, the movie, in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys on another video soon. Have an amazing day. Bye.